A New York judge has rejected President-elect Donald Trump's request to throw out his conviction in the criminal hush money case. Judge Juan Merchan said in a court filing Monday the Supreme Court's ruling giving presidents immunity from prosecution over official acts does not apply to this case. A jury convicted Trump in May on 34 counts of falsifying business records to conceal hush money payments to adult film actress Stormy Daniels in the lead up to the 2016 election. Trump's sentencing had been delayed while the judge considered the impact of the Supreme Court's ruling.
After a recent string of frankly disturbing electoral, legal, and political victories, Donald Trump has finally suffered a major legal defeat that left him publicly triggered into a full-blown meltdown on Truth Social, because it suggests that there is a possibility, believe it or not, that once he leaves the White House for the final time, he may still go to jail. But before we unpack all that, if you end up liking this video and you want to support the channel, please be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and alert bells before you go. All right, friends, this is good news. It's very good news. It's not the final word on this matter by any stretch of the imagination, but the legal, political, and electoral momentum had been on Trump's side recently. And so it's good to see him finally hit a roadblock, which signals the possibility that he may yet face accountability for his crimes. So what's the context for this? Well, before we get into Trump's reaction, which he's pissed, let's discuss what it is. Judge rules Trump does not have presidential immunity protections in hush money conviction. Trump's felony conviction in the New York hush money case should not be tossed out because of the Supreme Court's ruling on presidential immunity, Judge Juan Merchan ruled Monday. Merchan's decision rejected one of several avenues that Trump's lawyers have taken to try to dismiss Trump's May guilty verdict on 34 counts of falsifying business records. The judge did not, however, rule on a motion from Trump's attorneys to dismiss the conviction because Trump has now been elected president. Instead, his 41-page decision focused on the question of presidential immunity. Merchan wrote the Supreme Court's ruling that Trump should receive broad immunity for official acts during his time in office did not mean the conviction should be dismissed, ruling that the evidence presented by the Manhattan District Attorney's Office was not related to Trump's official conduct as president. The evidence contested by Trump's lawyers, the judge wrote, related, quote, entirely to unofficial conduct and should receive no immunity protections. This court concludes if error occurred regarding the introduction of the challenged evidence, such error was harmless in light of the overwhelming evidence of guilt. Even if this court did find that the disputed evidence constitutes official acts under the auspices of the Trump decision, which it does not, defendant's motion is still denied as an introduction of the disputed evidence constitutes harmless error, and no mode of proceedings error has taken place. Trump transition spokesman Stephen Chung in a statement that Merchan's decision, quote, is a direct violation of the Supreme Court's decision on immunity and other longstanding jurisprudence. So again, before we go on, this is where we are. Trump v. United States, that landmark Supreme Court decision, which in my opinion is arguably, debatably, one of the most negatively consequential Supreme Court decisions in modern American history. Certainly, I would argue, definitely in the top 5 or top 10 in the history of the United States, because it confers enormous lack of accountability on the most powerful person in the country, the President of the United States, by giving them this sort of sweeping immunity. That's bad enough, right? That is one major leap towards monarchy that I, as a patriotic American, am really uncomfortable with, and I imagine most of you are as well, if the polls are to be believed, because even in this polarized political climate, 70% of Americans do not believe that presidents should be entitled to presidential immunity, because it's freaking gross. It is. It's really gross. If you want a sovereign, go to the United Kingdom. They still have a monarch who is sovereign, who is above the law. We shouldn't have one here, Democrat or Republican. But it's bad enough that that court decision was made. But what's worse is the implication from bad faith MAGA actors like Trump, like Stephen Chung, like his lawyers, because they really want to use, they're like, listen, Trump, the Supreme Court decision on immunity is so broad and binding that if Trump happens to, pay out hush money to a porn star that he slept with and tried to suppress the story so it couldn't be used against him politically in the 2016 election. But if he happens to cut the damn checks when he is president, well, that's somehow an official act because, as you know, Article 2 of the Constitution, which deals with the presidency, it goes into vivid detail about how it's really important for presidents to have the right to pay hush money to their porn star mistresses. You see how gross this thing is being weaponized in bad faith by people who really desperately want a God King? Really gross. Trump's lawyers are likely to appeal Merchan's decision, one of several potential motions for dismissal that could leave the case tied up for months or even years. Merchan still has to rule on Trump's argument that his status as president was a legal impediment to further criminal proceedings, and the case should be dismissed as a result. Trump is yet to be sentenced following his May conviction. Prosecutors have already agreed the president-elect would not be sentenced while he is in office, but the district attorney's office has argued in legal filings that the felony conviction should still stand. Prosecutors wrote that the sentence could be delayed or modified. Dismissing of the jury's conviction altogether would be an unwarranted extreme remedy. And then the article goes back into the details. He was convicted in May on 34 counts of falsifying business records over payments to his then lawyer, Michael Cohen, to reimburse a $130,000 hush money payment made to adult film star Stormy Daniels in order to keep her from speaking out about an alleged affair before the 2016 election. Trump has denied the affair. So they're claiming that presidential immunity should just get this case totally tossed. That's not working. They may appeal, and who knows what could happen there. But what this does is leave open the possibility that Trump could face accountability. And if you don't believe me, look at Trump's own reaction. He's pissed. I'm the only political opponent in American history not allowed to defend myself, a despicable First Amendment violation. Merchan took the Manhattan DA's witch hunt that, according to all legal scholars, including Jonathan Turley, Ellie Honig, Andy McCarthy, Alan Dershowitz, Greg Jarrett, David Rifkin, Elizabeth Price Foley, Katie and Andy Cherkasky, Paul Ingracia, and many others, is a non-existent case barred by the statute of limitations and should never have been brought, and through his fraud and misconduct gave it a semblance of life. While deranged Jack Smith was sent packing back to The Hague after losing all of his politically manufactured cases against me, by the way, is not true. A Trump-appointed judge, Aileen Cannon, tossed the quote-unquote classified documents case brought by Smith in Florida. She just tossed it, right? And then Trump, once he won the presidency, once he became president, Jack Smith requested that the charges be dismissed because you can't prosecute a sitting president. Now, he did it in a way which leaves open the possibility that the January 6th case against Trump can be brought in the future, but who the hell knows if anybody's going to have an appetite for that. But it's not like Trump won all the cases or Smith lost all the cases. One was tossed out by the judge on the grounds that Smith was somehow not appropriately appointed to be special counsel. And then the January 6th case, Smith himself requested the charges be dropped, not because of lack of legal merit, but because Trump was going to be in a position where he couldn't be prosecuted by law. So anyway, Merchan, who is far worse and even more corrupt than Smith in his fight for my hopeless political opponents, just cannot let go of this charade. Is it because of his conflicts and relations that he keeps breaking the law? This has to stop. It's time to end the lawfare once and for all so we can come together as one nation and make America great again. Interesting, because Trump is actively hiring people who want to engage in lawfare against Trump's critics in the media. Kash Patel, for example. Kash Patel is Trump's FBI director nominee. He has publicly gone on the record that he wants to use lawfare against Trump's opponents. Trump himself has publicly advocated for using lawfare against his opponents. So this last sentence is just full of shit. It's time to end the lawfare once and for all so we can come together as one nation and make America great again. He's also, as we discussed in a recent video, suing Ann Selzer, a retired pollster. I digress. Then he had another rant. In a completely illegal, psychotic order, the deeply conflicted, corrupt, biased, and incompetent acting Justice Juan Merchan has completely disrespected the United States Supreme Court and its historic decision on immunity. But even without immunity, this illegitimate case is nothing but a rigged hoax. Merchan, who is a radical partisan, wrote an opinion that is knowingly unlawful, goes against our Constitution, and if allowed to stand, would be the end of the presidency as we know it. Merchan has so little respect for the Constitution that he is keeping in place an illegal gag order on me, your president and president-elect, just so I cannot expose his and his family's disqualifying illegal conducts or conflict. Yeah, Trump is triggered. Trump is triggered, and he is afraid. And the reason that he is afraid is because this leaves open the possibility, however small, that once he leaves the White House, Trump could be sentenced. If the convictions are valid and they're not overturned on appeal, then that means sentencing for the convictions, in theory, could be allowed to continue. Now, Merchan may split the baby on this and say, no, we're not dismissing this because of criminal immunity. The presidential immunity does not apply in this case, but he may chicken out and say, you know what, because he is president, we're not simply going to delay sentencing. We're just going to dismiss sentencing altogether. suppose all of those things are possible. But as of right now, the reason that Trump is afraid, the reason that Trump is so angry, was because he's afraid, because this is now a possibility, a real possibility, that once he leaves the White House, he could go to jail. Because the president has no jurisdiction, no authority over a Manhattan case, over a New York case. Trump's pardon wouldn't work in this particular case. So even if he tried to pardon himself, it wouldn't apply here. He has no recourse other than to hope that Merchan refuses to sentence him, tosses out the case, or that somehow Merchan's decisions are overturned on appeal, all of which are possible. I want to make that very clear. Donald Trump is the luckiest man in politics, period. He is Teflon Don. It is entirely possible that he navigates this minefield perfectly. But as of this moment, those mines are still, metaphorical mines, are still active, and he's still in the middle of it. That's why he's so afraid. And there is a real chance that if Merchan decides he's the right way, Trump could seriously face accountability in the form of a sentence, potentially a jail sentence, at the end of his presidency. So, hope still burns, however small the flame may be. And that's what scares Trump. In the meantime, let me know what you think in the comments.